The world of the Lord of the Rings Online is a very big place. Through our questing, we may not always be able to find every little thing that Standing Stone Games and Turbine have added to the game. This series is meant to highlight the great care and effort that the developers took to bring Tolkien's words to life. As promised, today's episode is about Bree-land. From Buckland to the Old Forest, to the Barrow Downs and to the Bree Fields and Midgewater Marshes, Bree-land is perhaps the largest and most environmentally diverse zone in all of Lotro. Tolkien did not spend a lot of time fleshing out Bree-land for the readers, but Turbine, now Standing Stone Games, took what was written and beautifully expanded on it to create a fantastic and lively zone. Here are 10 things you may have missed in Bree-land. Mentioned briefly in my previous video, Tolkien indicated that Staddle was a hobbit settlement in Bree. Turbine made it a point that all hobbits found within Bree, Staddle, and Coombe did not possess any of the well-known hobbit family surnames such as Took, Brandybuck, Baggins, Bracegirdle, Proudfoots, Boffins, and Gamgee. Instead, they possessed Bree-ish names such as Boggs, Dogwood, and Underhill. This is because the hobbits of Bree were hobbits that elected not to follow Marcho and Blanco to colonize the Shire. Gandalf was well aware of this when he gave Frodo the traveling name of Underhill, as it is a very common name in Bree, which Turbine made sure to show. As you leave Bree through the south gate towards the Lone Lands, you will encounter a lone tree in the middle of the road. This tree is actually an enchanted tree whose leaves shine yellow. Though its power has come to wane over time, Willow Song, a river maiden and sister of Goldberry, still keeps watch over it. Although this tree has no direct relation to Tolkien's lore, it does serve as a reminder that the size and power of the Old Forest once stretched much farther than its boundaries today. Treebeard tells of a time when much of Eriador was forested and part of his domain, but these immense forests dwindled over time. Elrond corroborated his statements within the Council of Elrond in the Fellowship of the Ring. Time was when a squirrel could go from tree to tree from what is now the Shire to Dunland west of Isengard. Of this vast forest, according to Treebeard, Fangorn Forest was just the east end. Treebeard begged the hobbits to send word if any sign of the Entwives was ever seen in Eriador. As a tribute to this exchange, Turbine created a deed within the Old Forest called Flowers of the Old Forest, which tells the tale of 8 Entwives who passed from the south into the Old Forest, never to be seen again. Did you know Neek Breekers are called as such because of Samwise Gamgee? These giant cricket-like creatures were never given a name, but described by Tolkien in the chapter A Knife in the Dark in the Fellowship of the Ring. There were also abominable creatures haunting the reeds and tussocks that from the sound of them were evil relatives of the cricket. There were thousands of them, and they squeaked all round, Neek Breek, Breek Neek, unceasingly all the night, until the hobbits were nearly frantic. The next day, the 4th, was little better, and the night almost as comfortless. Though the Neekerbreekers, as Sam called them, had been left behind, the midges still pursued them. Great job, Sam. Bald Hill in the Old Forest is actually the place where the 4 hobbits rested while they were traveling through the Old Forest. In the chapter The Old Forest in the Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien wrote, "The sun on the hillock was now getting hot. It must have been about 11 o'clock, but the autumn haze still prevented them from seeing much in other directions. In the west they could not make out either the line of the hedge or the valley of the Brandywine beyond it. Northward, where they looked most hopefully, they could see nothing that might be the line of the Great East Road, for which they were making. They were on an island in a sea of trees, and the horizon was veiled." Old Man Willow can be encountered southwest of Tom Bombadil's home within the Old Forest. In the chapter The Old Forest, Frodo and his companions encounter this old tree and are almost taken by it until Bombadil arrived. Suddenly, Frodo himself felt sleep overwhelming him. His head swam. There now seemed hardly a sound in the air. The flies had stopped buzzing. Only a gentle noise on the edge of hearing, a soft fluttering as of a song half whispered, seemed to stir in the boughs above. He lifted his heavy eyes and saw leaning over him a huge willow tree, old and hoary. Enormous it looked, its sprawling branches going up like reaching arms with many long-fingered hands, its knotted and twisted trunk gaping in wide fissures that creaked faintly as the boughs moved. The leaves fluttering against the bright sky dazzled him, and he toppled over, lying where he fell upon the grass. Old Man Willow actually slows you down and drains your power in-game as a reference to this event. A curious internal power struggle occurs within Bree-land that can often be overlooked. Saruman's brigands and half-orcs that have come from Dunland are scheming with brigands from Bree when they are waylaid by orcs, who have come from the north under the command of the Witch King of Angmar. During the quest Breaking Alliances, you are tasked with breaking the alliance between brigands and orcs that was forming and ultimately save Bree from complete and utter destruction. Way to go. Did you ever wonder why Tom Bombadil was surprised by the Barrow Wights being awake? The Witch King of Angmar rode from Mordor through Gondor, past Enedwaith, and into the Vale of Andrath to enter Bree-land on their way to the Shire. The Witch King's presence stirred the Wights. The Lotro game designers expanded on this idea by indicating the Witch King visited the Great Barrows before making his way to the Shire. This is also why there's an entrance into the southern Barrow Downs near the Vale of Andrath. Curious, right? Lotro's depiction of the Black Riders' raid on Buckland is extremely detailed and well done. As you pass the hedge gate, you will find various lampposts and gates toppled over, as well as spooked cows on roofs and busybody hobbits complaining. The door to Crick Hollow accurately represents what had happened to it. In the chapter A Knife in the Dark in the Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien wrote, "There was a blow, soft but heavy, and the door shuddered. 'Open in the name of Mordor,' said a voice thin and menacing. At a second blow the door yielded and fell back. With timbers burst and lock broken, the black figures passed swiftly in." Crick Hollow's back door is also seen as detailed in the same chapter. Fatty Bulger had not been idle. As soon as he saw the dark shapes creep from the garden, he knew that he must run for it, or perish. And run he did, out of the back door, through the garden, and over the fields. And finally, you can even spot the cloak the Black Riders dropped, as mentioned in the same chapter. The black figures fled from the house. One of them let fall a hobbit cloak on the step as he ran. Now that's attention to detail. In the previous episode, I mentioned that the Barrow Downs was once the capital city of Cardolan. The kingdom of Angmar, led by the Witch King, toppled Arthedain, Cardolan, and Rudar over time, but Cardolan was the very last to fall. The remaining people of Cardolan bunkered down in Osgorthad in the southern Barrow Downs and held out against Angmar's forces for as long as they could. When the Witch King finally claimed victory, he raised evil spirits to roam the Barrow Downs so that the spirits of the Cardolans would never find peace due to their defiance. And those were 10 things you may have missed in Bree-land. Was there anything that I might not have caught? Please let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to add it in a later video. Take care!